What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so the reason you're subscribed to this channel, literally the reason you're subscribed here, is because of news stories like what I've got coming up for you right now. Something you're not going to hear about on the mainstream. Not at all. Not unless you live in the local area. Those mainstream outlets might cover it, but it's definitely not going to be nationwide because that goes completely against the narrative that Democrats are putting out. And we know the mainstream news, they are heavy liberally biased, and they think they're just middle of the road people, which is so fascinating to watch. You got somebody that leans hard left, it's like far left most of the time, and they think that that's the center. So when they look to the right, holy hell, that right wing just extends on forever, but they don't realize that the moderate position is way off in the distance because they've gone so far left. It's absurd, y'all. Try to sit back and look at things objectively. Like, honestly, folks, and you can take my word for that, if you will. I'm sure you guys have noticed, but look, 2020, right? I wasn't a political guy at all. I didn't pay attention to politics. I wasn't into the news. And I came across a couple of videos talking about politics, and I was like, this is interesting, right? And I heard somebody say, you know, we need to pay attention to Congress. As a matter of fact, we need to pay attention to what these people do because these people make the rules that you have to live by. So you need to pay attention. You need to know who you're voting on because you don't know exactly what you're voting for unless you know the person, unless you know that candidate. Because candidates will run as a different person than who they actually are or how they govern. And that struck a chord with me. C minor, as a matter of fact. And so that's when I got heavy into politics. And I didn't know what side I was going to be on. I didn't know if I was left wing or right wing. And I quickly found out, y'all. I quickly found out. Quickly. Right? So they will not tell you what's going on. Anything that goes against the narrative, they will not report on that news. And that's fascinating to me. Check it out. Even when they claim to be centrist. Well, we're unbiased news over here. Re-elected Kansas mayor faces charges of voting as non-citizen. Oh, we thought it never happened. Did you hear that title? All right, that's from the Federalist. Once again, folks, I always give a right-wing warning, if you will, whenever I read news that is from a right-wing publication. This is the Federalist. They lean heavy right. So take that with whatever you want to. A grain of salt or a 2-ton brick. Doesn't matter. Take it however you want. But it's from the Federalist, and it's a fascinating news article. So honestly, I probably won't be needing to interject with manipulative rebuttals. But check it out, y'all. They kept telling us that non-citizens don't vote. It never happened. So there's no need to make it illegal. It's already illegal. There's no need to put in safeguards to prevent it. But hang on just a second. Did you understand that headline? Re-elected Kansas mayor. So it wasn't somebody that just got elected, was a non-citizen, to mayor of a small town, to be honest with you. Tantamount to a village. I think the population's like 680 people. So it's not very big, not very widespread. But a non-citizen, nevertheless, was elected as mayor, re-elected as mayor. That's fascinating, don't you think? These people, what is going on here? Like, was this just a wool pull over the eye moment, or what? We're going to find out, I guess. Check this out, y'all. The day after Coldwater, Kansas Mayor Joe Ceballos, I hope that's how you pronounce it, otherwise I will be admonished, was reelected to a second 4-year term this week. Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobal filed election fraud charges against him. Ceballos, 54, is not a U.S. citizen, but he is not in the country illegally. He is a legal permanent resident of the United States and a citizen of Mexico, Kobal said. In Kansas, it is against the law to vote if you are not a U.S. citizen. We allege that Mr. Ceballos did it multiple times, Cobal said in a statement. How does that happen, folks? How does American citizens elect a non-citizen as their mayor? That's insane to me. Once again, like, it was insane to me the first time I saw ICE arrest an individual. I forget the city. It was a small town, I believe, outside of Chicago. A police officer. I'm like, well, that's insane. Chicago is hiring non-citizens to hold power over you. That's absurd, if you ask me. Hang on just a second. It's illegal for non-citizens to own firearms. Like I said when I covered that story, folks, that chief of police, whoever's in charge of hiring that person, and the chief of police, as a matter of fact, should be arrested. That's, once again, folks, we need blind justice in this country. That's not blind justice, as a matter of fact. That is very open-eyed, maybe one-eyed justice. It's insane, yo. Ceballos faces 3 counts of voting without being qualified and 3 counts of election perjury. The charges are non-person felonies that could cost Ceballos more than 5 years in prison. Basically, I'm sure you get it from context clues, but non-person felonies is basically where there's no particular victim, right? You could say the whole town is a victim, but, that's not really an individual victim that we can actually point to, or it would be everybody, right? So it's a non-person. It's kind of like fraud charges when, like with Trump, right? There wasn't really a victim because nobody was defrauded, but they convicted him on fraud charges anyway, somehow. Well, when you get a bunch of people together that are deranged with Donald Trump and they think he's just an evil scumbag, you can convict him on anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't even have to be a law. You can just poof, like we saw with Alvin Bragg. He is alleged to have voted at least in the 2022 and 2023 general elections and the 2024 primary elections, although he has apparently been registered to vote since 1990, folks. Oh, hang on, Associated Press. I know that's not who it is, but hang on, Associated Press, because they are the ones that report on it. Oh, well, non-citizen voting doesn't ever happen, as a matter of fact. That's what they tell you, but I wonder exactly how widespread non-citizen voting is, because there is a lot of non-citizens in this country, right? We talk about the numbers, right? The estimates of criminal aliens. And that's like, anywhere from 25 to 50 million people in this country are here illegally. Kind of makes you wonder how many are here legally. It's probably not that much, to be honest with you. Not 50 million or 25 million. I mean, it might be 25 million. I honestly have no idea, but he was not charged for holding office, although it is a problem. You think? Kansas law at KSA 15-209 requires a city officer to be a qualified elector, and being a qualified elector requires that person to be a United States citizen, Cobal said during a press conference. It is not a criminal offense to be in violation of that law, but it's worth noting. According to KWCH, Ceballos ran unopposed for his second term in Coldwater, population 687. The rural town is an hour outside of Dodge City and more than 200 miles from the nearest major city, Oklahoma City. State law generally requires that candidates for elected office must be a qualified elector or eligible to vote and be a resident of the city. Cobal's statement reads, however, cities have home rule power. It will be up to the city attorney to decide whether Ceballos is eligible to continue in his role as mayor. Coldwater City Attorney Skip Hurd told local television outlet KWCH that Ceballos is a green card holder, and there were red flags raised with his interest in pursuing permanent citizenship. He's been a registered voter since 1990. He applied for citizenship in February of this year, and through that, raised the issue of whether he was a legal citizen, Hurd said. According to KWCH, Coldwater officials decided that Ceballos can finish his term, which ends in 2 months, and, unless his citizenship is approved during that time, Council President Britt Lentz will be named mayor. Fascinating, that is. While the recent allegations involving the mayor are understandably concerning, we will allow the proper legal process to take its course before making any further comments. It is important that we respect both due process and the integrity of our local government, Lentz posted on Coldwater's Facebook page. Coball and Kansas Secretary of State Scott Schwab are using the moment to highlight the problem of non-citizens registering to vote and participating in U.S. elections. I've worked with Attorney General Coball for years on proof of citizenship as a useful tool to root out election crimes. During my time as House Elections Chair, then Secretary Coball and I fought to pass a proof of citizenship requirement. Instead, we're left relying. I'm sorry, y'all, for all these slip-ups. I don't know what's going on with my reading today. I do apologize. We're left with relying on individuals' word when it comes to verifying citizenship, Schwab said in a statement. I'm grateful that President Trump implemented the SAVE program to help states and to prevent situations like this. In many states, when registering to vote, the only test of citizenship status is a question on a postcard. Are you a U.S. citizen? Checking the box next to yes is all the proof required. That's fascinating, don't you think? Can we get something a little bit more in-depth than checking a box? Like birth certificate, something, right? But we get nothing, y'all. These people think it's racist to have to show your citizenship. Oh, we don't want people running around in Nazi Germany talking about show me your papers. Got the Gestapo over here. It's insane, y'all. How can they really must throw identity politics into everything, even voting? Even though, once again, you got to show your ID to buy liquor, to buy tobacco, to get on an airplane, to get into a bar, to get into a casino. I mean, there's all kinds of things you have to show an ID for, and none of those are racist. But if it comes to voting, you're suppressing the vote, is what you're doing. How? Once again, it should be a one-time thing. When you register to vote, you prove you're a citizen at that point in time. That's it. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. Because if you're a citizen once, you're a citizen always. I mean, unless you renounce your citizenship, but then, that's on you at that point. Last week, a federal court stalled Trump's executive order that required documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote, calling it unconstitutional, as the Federalist Brianne Lyman reported. Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act, introduced by Rep. Chip Roy, who, by the way, is my favorite politician, would require states to obtain documented proof that potential voters are U.S. citizens to prevent non-citizens from voting. The state cannot look at the voter rolls and automatically know who is and is not a citizen. That is right, folks, because, once again, a lot of states will register you to vote when you go get an ID. And you must have an ID if you're in the country, right? Or you're supposed to. So, how do we discern who is a citizen and who is not? You can't. That's why when you hear the Associated Press or liberals or anybody say, well, non-citizen, it's illegal, so they're not going to vote. We don't know that. They're electing non-citizens as the mayor of cities. How do we know? And I believe that is why Democrats wholeheartedly support criminal aliens, to the fullest extent, because they want these people, they want to grift to these people to get them on their side so they'll vote Democrat. Because it gives them more power. They want them in their districts. That's why the whole thing with sanctuary states and sanctuary cities was created, to give them more delegation power, if you will, more electoral power. because the census counts people, it doesn't count citizens, which that needs to be changed. Absolutely, because California itself would lose up to 7 congressional seats if there was a new census come out and we only counted citizens. Yeah, there's a lot of states. Texas would lose a lot as well. And so would Florida, probably. New York. All your sanctuary states and some red states are going to lose power, as a matter of fact. But I think, looking at the makeup of the country, I do believe that the blue states would be harmed the most. But once again, that's how they frame it or whatever. But wouldn't that be setting everything equal? Wouldn't that be equity? Right? I'm just saying. The only way you can discover that a non-citizen is on the voter rolls is if some sort of external information comes to light which indicates that that person is not a U.S. citizen. In large part, our system right now is based on trust. Trust that when the person signed the registration or signed the poll books saying that he's a qualified elector or that he is a United States citizen, that person is telling the truth, Cobalt said. Yeah, and that's all of that. I just find it all fascinating, y'all, that this city, Coldwater, elected a non-citizen as their mayor. And this dude is serving as their mayor. It's his second freaking term. Like, what is wrong with people? Like that's what I want to know. Like, don't you think, like, if you look at the SAVE Act, it's just nothing but filled with milquetoast, just bland common sense. That's all it is. Right? It's nothing special. No voter suppression, nothing like that. It just basically, and it doesn't change the makeup right now. All it is anybody from whenever it gets enacted. So it's already passed the House. It's gone nowhere in the Senate. But once it gets enacted, right, from that point on, anybody that registers to vote would have to prove they're a citizen to be able to get there, to be registered, essentially. From that point on. So any criminal aliens or any non-citizens that are currently registered to vote would not be affected, essentially. Now, if the state were to go through the voter rolls and find out, which I'm sure they would do, if they were to go through one by one, which would be millions upon hundreds of millions, right? Not for the states, but, for the whole country, hundreds of millions of people. They could find every non-citizen and boot them off the voter rolls, which I think should be done. Once again, we need to run another census where there is, it only goes to, only citizens count on the census. That would be the fair way to do it, because non-citizens do not have electoral power. It is a violation of the law for them to vote. Why are they counted toward electoral power if they have no say in the matter? It's all fascinating, y'all, but I think I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Click the join button. Sign up and become a member. And you guys remember that God has a plan for everybody, and He loves each and every one of you out there. So y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.